Welcome back, everybody. Mac Pierre-Louis, attorney, mediator, arbitrator. Welcome back to the LMIpodcast.com. All right, with attorney Sherell Carter. And this time we're on part three, talking about pros and cons of 50-50, or what is 50-50 custody. We hear this term a lot these days, Sherelle. It's become more popular over the last few years, I think. You have a lot of I guess, fathers' rights advocates who have been pushing for this around the country, who are basically arguing, look, a child doesn't belong to just one parent. A child belongs to both. And so both parents should have equal decision making and equal time with the child in order to, help raise a healthy young kid. And so I'm sure you've gotten the calls, like I have, from people, especially men, who want quote unquote 50-50 custody or 50-50 conservatorship or 50-50 possession and access. What are some of your thoughts on where this is going?
All right, 50-50 on possession and access and conservatorship or custody. I want to start this off by saying this is very controversial. Um, I'm not. I want you to know I'm not like all for it on either side. It is definitely a case by case basis that I would recommend on these type of situations. And so I also want to preface this by saying that this is not something that you would generally off on a face on a just a typical conservatorship case that you're going to get in court, right?
Yeah.
These 50-50 type agreements generally happen when you have an attorney that's fighting for interest, on your behalf. So this isn't going to be, hey, OAG, I want 50-50. You're going to have a private attorney to be able to help you enforce this type of right. And so typically where I see this at, I would start with, let's say, generally, the parties have been together. Maybe one maybe it was the father who was the primary person. Like maybe he stayed at home, maybe he was unemployed, maybe the mom made more money and so forth, and so he was typically could have been the primary caregiver. And so they split up, and let's say he now has to get a job, right? But the child is used to being with father, right? And I've seen it in instances to where let's do week on, week off. Like dad gets the child one week, mom gets the child the other week, but there's no order, right? They just have been doing this because at the time they thought it was genuinely the best interest for the child. It worked for their schedules, it worked for their work week. And then sometimes a parent just decides, you know what? Somebody may say, hey, girl, you don't got to let them see your kids. Like, you just do what you want to do. There's no order. And she just stops. Or he just stops, right? And now the other parents cut off, right? I think those make great cases in court to be able to go and fight to say, look, we've been doing 50-50 this entire time. And the other party just stopped it because I got a new girlfriend, or he got got a new boyfriend, or they're upset, they're mad, right? The judges can be able to see and look at that. And once again, the cornerstone of family law cases is the best interest of the child. And so the question is going to be, if you've been doing this an entire time, what has changed that is no longer it's in the best interest of the child, right? So that would be one of my arguments in that regard as for 50-50. But the flip side to that is, more often than not, I do get fathers that they want to be there, right? Maybe we haven't been doing a 50-50 arrangement. We just now split up. Nobody's just exclusively had the child. And now, I want more than to be a weekend warrior, right? I want to see my kid more than on the weekends, right? Um, these come into agreements with the mom, right? And so I often tell my clients that are women, right? Think of the life that you can have. Often as mothers, we're the bad parents. We have to be the ones to get them up from school, doing their homework, cleaning their room, doing chores. Here is, dad comes in on the weekends and takes them to the mall, or takes them to an event in park. So dads generally seem to be the fun parent, right? That doesn't always have to be the case. You have options. You can create your own custom agreement. It doesn't have to be what the guidelines say of the first, third, and fifth for the other parent. You can generally say, hey, let's split the time. Like, I want to start dating. I want to be able to have a life and not have my child be involved and see what's going on. I want to be able to be a woman and enjoy life while he's out there frolicking around. You guys can generally create a plan that's custom to where you can do a week on, week off, right? And sometimes that may not work. maybe distance is an issue, maybe work schedule is an issue, you can also do a split week. I've done in situations to where, like, maybe mom gets, Monday through Wednesday or Monday through Thursday, and dad gets, Friday through Sunday, or you rotate that every week, or mom can get Thursday through Sunday, dad gets Monday through Wednesday. There's so many things that you can do when you have a private attorney, and two parties that are genuinely looking to just come up with an agreement, to where they feel that their interest is being heard and represented. There's so much that you can do. And
Yeah.
in those instances, I'm a big, advocate of the 50-50.
Yeah. So, what about connecting it to money? Because you might
Mhm.
hear some moms say, well, the dad only wants 50-50 because he doesn't want to pay child support. And the father might be like, well, that kind of proves the point. He just wants this so because of the money, not because of the time I can spend with the child. And so sometimes we've done 50-50 where the child does live with the parents equally. And then we'll look at how much money, dad makes compared to how much money mom makes. And basically see how much money would each parent pay the other. And the parent who would pay more would pay the difference. Okay. So that way you kind of balance it out where you have the parent who's a higher earner, who makes more money, will pay some child support, but they're getting a massive credit because
Yeah,
of the extra amount of time.
yeah, it'll be offset. And so
It-
that's a great point, right? And so sometimes, maybe one parent doesn't want to do 50-50 because they want child support, right? Um, I've seen this to where, look, dad is like, I don't care about what kind of money she wants. I just want to spend time with my child, right? And so, mom, if you're in one of those situations, you won't know until you probably get some representation and get into, mediation and speaking back and forth. But if you have an open mind, you may be able to still get the same amount of child support with half the time and responsibilities, because dad wants 50-50, right? So there's incidents where you can still do a 50-50 arrangement and still get, the type of child support that you're looking for, right?
yeah.
There are
We-
incidents
mhm.
or situations or however where certain things can take place where you could do a 50-50 agreement and no party pays child support, right? I've seen this more so where parties have like teenagers, right? They're like maybe, 13, 14, or 15, 16, right? And they're like, look, I like just help pay the person, agree to pay tuition, or pay the person's school clothes, or there's or pay the extracurricular activities. Like, there are so many things that you can do when you have an open mind in private representation that will allow you to have a different setup in life in regards to, custody, conservatorship, and child support. It just takes an open mind, and a really good attorney to be able to be in your corner.
Yeah. And one thing that we always want to tell people is we don't want to give people false hope. You said before, this is not something that happens a whole lot, right? You do have to be flexible as parents. Also, enforceability. Like, if you're going to say, okay, so and so is going to buy the child a car, or this parent's going to pay extracurricular activities. Well, a lot of times these things are not going to be enforceable in a court order because they're not going to be written down in a way that's going to have any teeth. And so there has to be trust as well between the parents. I think trust is one of the crucial elements that's oftentimes missing. If a parent goes into trying to get a 50-50 arrangement and they're trying to force the issue, that's, in my opinion, a recipe for disaster. It's probably going to fall apart because they're both going to force the court to have to make a decision. And if that's going to be the case, well, we kind of know a lot of these judges are going to be like, well, the kid needs a home and the other parent needs to pay, right? That's how they're going to see it. And so it's generally to both parties' benefit. So if you're a dad out there and you think it's good for your kid to have 50-50, and it's probably good for your wallet as well to have a 50-50, well, motivate mom, incentivize mom. There has to be something in it, for
Yeah.
the other side to make a deal with you. So we just have to, you know, use our brains here to think outside the box and
I
be creative.
love being creative in that regard, and you're right. It comes about enforceability. So I've seen instances to where, like, okay, well, okay, so how much is the school clothes you want him to pay for every year, right? or how much is the car or whatever. Let's break that down. What does that look like as far as monetary amount? And say, okay, so it'll come out to be what, $200? Okay, all right. So let's put in there that you'll pay $200. Great. And so that way, mom or the non-custodial, or the primary parent feels like that they're being heard, they're getting what they need, that what the issue is at hand is being resolved, right? The term of there's more than one way to skin the cat is very, very much so applicable into many of these family law cases, especially when it comes to possession, access, and child support.
Yeah. And I think mediation then, is gonna stick its head into the middle of all of this, because going to mediation and having a mediator who can think outside the box is going to, more likely than not, help you get what you want when it comes to this kind of arrangement, because very often you're not going to get it from a court.
Absolutely.
So
And so you made a great point I want to touch on. Many county, if so Harris County is the area that we're in, and there's several courts, and every court in Harris County has their own rules and can be different, right? And so even the touching counties. And so what I'm saying a lot, so we're not wasting the court's time and resources. Many courts these days are requiring you to do mediation before you even do temporary orders hearing. So before you even get to a judge to hear your case, many courts are requiring you to go to mediation and see if you can try to talk it out and figure it out first before you even go before a judge. So, um, definitely, mediation is a big part of these cases, and come with an open mind. I would say the focus should be what are your concerns, and then let's focus on how can we address those concerns. If you believe that there's an issue, let's focus on how we can fix them as opposed to attacking the other party, or well, he just doesn't want to do this and he just doesn't want to do that. No, what are your concerns? Are your concerns is that you do not have enough to pay child care and cover all the expenses? Okay, so how much is child care? What are the expenses? Okay, let's look at the income. Let's make it make sense, right? Because one of the worst things that I really can't stand, and I know this video is getting a bit long, but when someone is forced to pay a certain amount of money that they could be making, and so Office of Attorney General does take into consideration overtime, right? I hear a lot from dads, well, hey, that check has overtime on it. Well, guess what? That was money that you still earned that needs to be counted in resources, right? But you could work in an area where like the fall is really like busy. You're making a lot of money, getting hours because of the holidays, and then the rest of the 8 months you're struggling and you're still stuck with that order, right? It makes it difficult for the person to be able to provide for themselves, to provide for their children, to be able to be a good parent. And so you want to work together so you have a steady, as I mentioned, an equilibrium to where both parents can co-parent. They can be a part of the child's life. It can be a good fostering environment, right? And so when finances are a stress for either side, it automatically becomes hostile. It automatically becomes a not so good environment, and that stress passes on to the children. So that's something to think about.
yes. So thank you so much for this talk. It's been actually quite fun discussing this. And let me share your website again. People can get in touch with you. How? Best way.
Oh, yes. Go to Justice by Carter. That's www.justicebycarter.com. You can find my information, a little bit details about me, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and the number to my office if you ever need to give me a quick call.
Awesome. Sherell Carter, attorney and mediator. Thank you so much for stopping by and talking on the LMI podcast. All right, everyone, sign up for lmipodcast.com, YouTube channel, TikTok, YouTube, everywhere. All right. Take care, everybody. Until next time. Bye bye.
Bye, y'all.